Welcome to Coffee with the Sarlos. We are your hosts of the show, Karen and Kelly Sarlo. Whether you're struggling with grief or you just need answers, we connect you with spirit to find relief, clarity, and direction in life. We can help you move forward. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I saw my opportunity and I took it.
You surprised me.
I'm excited for whatever story you've got today.
Okay. This is over Zoom, and there's a couple sitting in front of me. And at the very beginning of the session, they said that they wanted medium, and they just said that. And as soon as they said it, I saw a group of 4 people in front of me. And I don't mean over Zoom. I mean dead people. So I see 4, and they look like 4 grandparents because of their age. And I'm going to say that because, of course, not all grandparents die old. But it looked like these 4 people lived to be old. Like they all had gray hair. They had bodies of elderly people. And I can see 2 men, 2 women. And that's also important because we can have step-grandparents and there can be more than 2 of one sex, right? So I see 2 men, 2 women, and they come in and they say to me, we got her, we got her, we got her, like this. And I'm thinking, who've they got? Because there are 4 adults, so do they mean one of the 2 women? So I'm just waiting a second, like what's happening? And I see one of the men holding onto what looks like a baby car seat. And I look more closely at the car seat and I see pink in it. And I think, oh, that's supposed to be an indication because I might have a belief that pink means girl. Okay, so that's fine. So I'm thinking, oh, they have a baby girl with them. And they go, we got her, we love her, she's great, like this. And I look closer because I want to see if it's actually a car seat because I think, is that important versus just a carrier? And I look closer and I see, yeah, this looks like a car seat to me, which means it's more solid than a regular little plastic carrier. And I think, okay, I wonder if this couple has lost a baby. And I thought, well, I'm just going to wait because we always say, like whatever it is, or whoever it is that you want to come through, we let them choose. So I thought, I'm just going to take out a Post-it note and I'm just going to write down baby. So I wrote down baby. I wrote pink, I believe. And then I wrote car seat, baby in a car seat.
And so far, all the humans have said to you is, we want medium, please.
Yes. And I'm just writing it really quickly as they're talking. And I write down on the note, car seat. And I write down held by grandfather. So, and then I think, I wonder which grandfather, hers or his, that's holding the baby's car seat. And I wonder if this is actually going to all be relevant. So I think, okay, I asked them, who's holding the car seat? Which grandfather? And I hear his grandfather, the husband's. So I just wrote down husband's father. It would be the child's grandfather. So I want to make sure I get that right. So I just wrote that down really quickly on the page and I thought, okay, we'll see. It may not turn out that way. They may be wanting one of the grandparents or somebody else entirely. So I put the little Post-it note down and I just looked at them and I waited and I said to them, well, my policy is that you pick whoever it is that you choose. And they said, well, are you getting anything and can you just start? And I said, no, that's not how I do medium. I said, I'm going to ask you to select who you want. And it's for that very reason. I have 5 people on the other side approaching me. Which one do you want? But I'm not telling them I've got 5 people walking towards me. I just say to them, no, my policy is you have to do the choosing. And so the husband says to me, we'd like to see if you can connect to a child that we've lost. Doesn't say baby, he says child. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to show you my note. And I said, can you tell me if what I'm getting, and I'll read it to you and show it to you. And he goes, can you show it to us first? And I said, yep. So I just held it up to the camera and then I pulled it away and he goes, okay. He goes, we lost a baby. He says, so you're you wrote some things down, grandparents, can you go ahead and start now? And I said, yeah. I said, the first thing that I heard, and then I described how they were all excited and they were going, we got her, we got her. And then you could see them change. Then you could see the couple just sit there. And so many times during the session, Kelly, you could see where they take a breath. And you could see their shoulders like kind of moving, or they would reach out and touch each other, or sit up a little bit in the chair, or just sort of sit back and make like they're relaxing. And I said, is it accurate that the grandfather is holding on to the car seat because the baby died in a car accident? And he goes, are you guessing? And I said, I don't know how to explain this to you. I said, it can sound like I'm guessing. I said, but I have to guess accurately if you think I'm guessing. I said, everything has to come out accurately. And he goes, okay. And I said, and I can give you a bit more information. He goes, okay, you go ahead. And I said, your mom and dad are the ones that were in the car accident with your child. And he goes, that's correct. And I said, and they all die the same day. You lost 3 people in one day. And he goes, yes. And I said, and your mom and dad passed first. And I said, and you found out later, like many hours later, although that's not really very later, is it? It's just later that day. But I said, you find out later that day that your baby didn't make it. And he goes, that's right. That's how we lost them. And he goes, do you know who died first, my mom or my dad? And I said, actually, no. I said, they're just saying they died before your daughter died. And I said, is that correct? And he goes, that is correct. And I said, so they're saying they got her. They're trying to tell you they crossed first and they greeted your daughter as she was crossing over. But your wife's mom and dad have been crossed over for years. And he goes, that's right. And I said, and they were there for your daughter as well, but they show that they've been on the other side for a longer period of time. And so they're trying to say that all 4 grandparents got her, meaning she's not alone, she's not scared. And he goes, okay, that's really helpful. He says, thank you very much for that. He says, Karen, he says, it sounds like I wasn't being very nice to you. He says, but I just really don't understand all of this. And then I said, okay, can you give me a sec? And so I said to the spirit guides, what's happening? I said, can you guys just tell me what's happening? And the spirit guide said, yeah, we certainly can. They think, he and his wife, that their baby is in limbo. They don't understand why they got her, because the grandparents have all been baptized. And so they think their parents are all in heaven with God, but that the baby wasn't baptized, so it should be in limbo, which means it's in a place that isn't hell or heaven. It's in between, but it's a lack of being in the presence of love and God.
Can we take a pause for a second?
Yeah.
And just talk about the complete fucking inefficiency of their belief system? And I'm talking the Christians, or whoever does baptism. Okay, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but can we just kind of humorously talk about this? If you genuinely believe your structure, your hierarchy in the afterlife is that you cannot get a ticket into heaven if you are not baptized, then why is there not someone capable of baptizing in every fucking delivery room the second that thing pops out?
Well,
you have an inefficient system. If you are waiting 6 months, 3 months, 2 days to get them baptized.
Yes.
That makes no fucking sense. Your system's broken. If you genuinely buy into that belief system,
okay,
how have you not made the system more efficient?
Well, they tried to. So this is really, really interesting, what you just did. Okay, so I need a minute because I'm 61 and I grew up in the older generations where when I grew up with Catholic parents, Roman Catholic parents, in the system I grew up in, within the church system in my community, meaning here, locally, in this city, there was limbo and purgatory. So we were taught that.
Sorry, are those two different things?
Yeah, babies go to limbo. Wait, so, and I can't remember everything about purgatory because I've been out of Catholicism for so long, but give me a second. Give me a sec. So here's what I've learned about it. I've learned that it's not in the Bible. I've learned that limbo is actually not written into the New Testament or the Old Testament, but that at a particular time, men, meaning the priests, the Pope, the hierarchy, the archbishops and the bishops, whoever, and somebody might be able to totally correct me and say exactly who in the structured system that is a church, created limbo.
Dreamt up.
Yes, they did.
No, I'm changing language on purpose.
Yes, I know.
Dreamt up.
They dreamt up limbo to put these babies into this place, which caused suffering.
No, to create fear,
yes,
and control,
yes,
not to put babies,
right,
because we're talking about a belief system.
Yes, it is. Yes, so they did this at a particular time, and so my parents' generation stayed under that level of control, and you're hearing so did I for a period of time, and then the younger generations, and I've researched this on the internet. I've done some research to figure all of this out.
Were you drinking at the same time?
Drinking? If I drank, if I were a drinking woman, I would be drinking. But I researched it. And it has more to do with Ireland in particular that created the belief in the research.
So someone was drinking.
Okay, so someone in Ireland came up with this limbo thing, and then it moved into other countries, but it didn't move into all countries. So this comes out in the research that I was able to find about this limbo system. And so, but the younger generations decided, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody believe that? If you believe in a God that offers forgiveness and offers love and offers peace, it makes no sense that you'd put babies that have done nothing wrong in a limbo.
Wouldn't they put the parents who didn't baptize the kids in the limbo?
Oh, that's really funny.
If we're talking actually about forgiveness, whatever the hell that is, wouldn't it be the parents that need the forgiving, not the helpless child?
Well, yes, but you got to remember that none of this makes sense.
I'm sorry, I'm the one pointing that out.
I know.
This is Swiss cheese, okay?
Yes. So as the younger generations came along and went, no, I don't believe that, and I'm not going to have it. Then the Catholic Church said, oh, we better let it go because we're losing younger people.
Because traditionally and historically, Catholics have been really good at letting things go.
So they let it go. So now I'm learning that they let go of limbo. However, let's get back to our story and to this particular session. So the spirit guides say to me, this couple believes in limbo. They didn't get...
Critical thinking?
Oh my God, you're hilarious. You are like you're on this today.
Brought to you by Folgers.
Oh, good. Okay. They didn't get the memo from the Catholic Church that they no longer are serving up limbo, that it's no longer necessary to believe in it in order to be a good Catholic. So this particular couple is still believing it. And as a result, just like all the couples before them that lost babies before baptism, are suffering. Mm-hmm. They're in grief, like every other couple that has lost a baby, whether you are Jewish or Islamic or maybe...
Pardon me.
Human.
No, not even.
Yeah.
We've witnessed animals grieve over the loss of their babies, right? I shouldn't even say human. it's a universal experience of loss.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like you're talking about them being in grief. They're also in completely unnecessary, hurtful grief.
Yeah.
Because of the belief system.
That's right.
And I know I'm being humorous, and I'll probably won't stop that. But I have tremendous empathy for what they are experiencing, given that that's the conditioning of their belief system.
Yes. So the spirit guide said to me, this couple believes in limbo. They haven't got the memo that this group of men within this community, within this structured system, has changed their mind again. So they made it up to begin with, and then they changed their mind. So they've now that people have poked holes in it or just called it out for what it fucking is.
No, that's the second one.
Right?
Go on.
Now that they've called it out for what it is, bullshit, the Catholic Church has decided, well, we're just not going to enforce that anymore. We're just going to let it go because the younger generation won't have it. And we don't want to lose
donations.
We don't want to lose that money. We don't want to lose the power that having these people under our control gives us. So they didn't get that. So I said to the spirit guides, well, what do I do? And they said, we want you to educate them. We want you to offer this to them. And then just let them do with it whatever they want. But just bring this to their attention that this is what is causing their stress. This is why they're seeking out a medium, which I find so interesting, that they're trying to find a medium to connect to their daughter to see what their daughter's trying to doing, or if she's okay in limbo. So this is super curious to me that they're trying to see if I, as a medium, which they shouldn't even believe in, can reach their daughter who's in a state of limbo. So do I have access to limbo?
Oh, and see, my brain, this is how curious it is to me, that grieving parents, where all of us humans ultimately actually know and feel in this center of knowing of our bodies, okay, what love is. Mm-hmm. These grieving parents are willing to go against their own belief system, willing to risk the potential sin, because I'm talking their language, sin of employing a medium, a psychic medium, okay, that is probably worthy of a ticket to hell, just to have the peace of mind that their baby that they didn't or couldn't or wouldn't get baptized is okay. That's how much the parent is willing to risk in love for their baby. All because of a belief system
that somebody made up at a particular point in time in a particular country to control people, to get them into their group, and then changed their mind and didn't put out the memo that they changed their mind. Now, somebody might call us and go, oh, actually, they did put it out in the Catholic Register. Oh, they did put it out in their magazine.
That is not the point.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just saying the silliness of where some listeners could sit and go, oh, wait a minute, Karen. Actually, let me go find that Catholic Register. And I can remember stacks of the Catholic Register on my mom and dad's buffet table that my sister and them read like every single week, cover to cover, to make sure that they were following whatever current beliefs this group of men were putting out there, and where there might be changes into things.
Where this sounds like our two previous marriages. Just constant, I changed my mind, here are the new rules.
Yes, which, I mean, we could do another little side show about that right now, about how that system then primes you to be in that type of marriage, where it does give the next man in your life permission to do the very same kind of mindfuckery.
At the beginning of this show, I felt like I was at the right level of caffeinated, and now I've hit a point of rage where the caffeine is working against me. So I'm going to let you get back to the story.
It actually goes quite well. So
we'll see.
I did what the spirit guides said to do.
Educate.
And I educated them, and I said, okay, I'm being told, and I'd like you to tell me if this is accurate. I'm being told that you've both been raised Roman Catholic? And they said, yes. And I said, and I'm being told that you got the memo. And I called it that. I said, you got the memo on limbo. And they both just looked at me like, how ignorant. But were willing to listen. So you see,
I feel like that's some of our listeners right now.
yeah, how ignorant, but I'm willing to listen to this. And they sat there and they did not disconnect. They did not challenge me. They did not say this is rude. They just said, could you go on, please? So I said, yes, I can, as long as you're giving consent, because my intention is not to cross any of your beliefs. My intention is to say what the spirit guides want me to say and to simply do my job, which is to channel your messages. That's it. And if anything I say crosses your boundary, please say so immediately and I will stop talking. Mm-hmm. And I said, you can give me a sign like a timeout, or you can give me a verbal cue. You can do anything that you want to indicate I've crossed a boundary.
I always tell people to give me the dentist finger because it's like this universal symbol of like, please just hold on a sec.
Yeah. They never did. They never gave me any signs I was crossing boundaries, even though what was being said from the spirit guides to them was challenging things humans had told them. And that's just a fact. So I said, okay, the spirit guides are saying that you bought into this belief, you bought into something that was said to you and you chose to believe it. And they went, well, that's an interesting way of saying that. That's true. That is what beliefs are. You do hear something, you are told something, and you have to choose to believe it. And I said, and when you're really young, you're just forced to believe it. You're punished if you don't. Mm-hmm. And she went, yes, that's true. I would have been punished not to believe it or not to go or to the church or to do things. I would have been punished. And I said, and so there's coercion into the beliefs. And she said, that's true. There is. And I said, now, to my knowledge, and I said, you can go research this. There's no limbo. And she goes, how do you know there's no limbo? And I said, I've been talking to dead people for 61 years. I said, I grew up in a funeral home. And I said, just never made sense to me. And I said, and she goes, even as a young kid, it didn't make sense to you?
No, because if we go back to that knowing that I was talking about,
yeah,
I think every single person, if they can put their belief systems aside, those concepts that were built in our minds by other language, if we actually feel our way through that concept, we're like, no, that's not love.
Uh-huh.
Whatever you want to call it, like the afterlife, God, source, energy, etc. Like that just makes no sense that there would be a structure that keeps love apart from love.
That's right. Yeah. And so she asked me about growing up in a funeral home. She literally just said to me, when you were a little girl, can you just tell me, like, what was it like? And I said, as like the memories I have is that all spirits on the other side were happy. And she goes, do you mean you could see them? And I said, yes. She goes, do you mean in the casket? And I said, well, I could see them in the casket as human bodies that were dead. And she goes, but did you also see them stand up and walk around and move and talk to you? And I said, all the freaking time. She goes, well, weren't you terrified if you were being taught the exact opposite of that? And I said, yes, I have plenty of stories. My brothers and sisters and my parents can tell you of nightmares nightly, of where it was never ending, one screaming nightmare after another. Yes, I grew up having tons of nightmares. And she said, well, when did they end? I said, when I decided to stop believing the lies, when I just decided to believe what I knew to be true from my connection to these spirits. And I said, the nightmares all ended. All of that did. And she went, did the pain end? And I went, yeah. And then I saw her kind of like reach out and hold her husband's hand in that moment when she's walking her own way through listening to what I walked through.
Yeah, because you can draw a parallel, which it sounds like she's doing, to be like, okay, well, if I choose not to believe in limbo, then I don't have to carry this fear and angst and grief that my daughter is out there somewhere separate from me forever.
And then here comes the moment. Her husband looks at me and he goes, "Do you mean to tell me that the Catholic Church literally put out there that there is no limbo?" And I said, "Yes, apparently they did." I said, "From the research that I found, they created it and then they ended the belief. They created a belief and stopped a belief because they were losing people joining or staying. They were losing them." And he went, "Then that's not the truth." And you could see him becoming enraged. And he goes, "So my wife and I have been suffering because somebody made a belief that caused our suffering and then decided to change it because they were losing money, because they were losing people and power and control at my expense and my wife's expense, our mental health." And I said, "You're processing. You do your processing." And he said, "I'm livid."
Good. That's an appropriate, proportionate response.
Yes.
I continue when people tell me, when they have the audacity to name their emotion, okay, as anger. I have tried so much lately to say that it is an appropriate, proportionate response to the situation so that you can understand that anger is healthy in a lot of situations. And in many, it is the only appropriate, proportionate response.
Love it, Kelly. So our conversation, like I'll say, stopped, and he and his wife had their own conversation. It didn't go on long. They just had their own conversation for a minute or two around that. And then they came back to me and said, "Okay, could you continue, please? We'd like to hear more from our daughter." And then I said, "Your daughter's changing and she's moving and she's like morphing her body into a full-grown adult." And he goes, "What?" And I said, "Well, they don't stay babies." And he goes, and you just see him take a moment. What were you going to say?
Which, again, if we go back into that center of knowing, he actually knew that. She actually knew that. Every single person who's listening to this or who's seen a medium actually knows that. Because no one calls a medium and says, "Can you connect to my dead baby?" and is waiting to hear a message from an infant who hasn't developed speaking before they passed. So they actually went into this with a knowing that there could be a verbal exchange because that's what we all intuitively have access to, spiritually, energetically have access to, except when we put it into words, when you say, okay, she's morphing and changing so that you can conceptualize having a conversation with an adult, not a 3-month-old or however old she was. That's when we become very aware of our limiting belief system that the body can't age. Therefore, how should I think that they can talk to me? And yet before I actually pulled this concrete belief system into place, I knew that she could talk to me.
Exactly.
That's all happening within you guys. And it just gets put out in the open and explained when you talk to a medium.
Yes. So I explained to him, I said, "Well, nobody stays the same. Everybody changes." And he went, "Well, that makes sense."
You're right.
And I said, "Good." And he goes, I'm on board." Like this. And I said, "Well, she's showing like a fully evolved soul is what I call them. But in human terms,
Adult.
we call that an adult that can speak and function and think and have logical thinking and processes and common sense and
so
feelings."
We're clear, not all adults equal fully evolved.
No,
But in this context.
yes.
Yeah.
So he said, "Okay." He says, "Go ahead. What does she want to say?" And this is what she comes out with. She says, "I want to describe my mom and dad." And I said, "Okay, go." And she says, "My mom and dad have chalkboards everywhere in every color you can think of. So Karen, look at the house. She goes, go look at my mom and dad's house. Go remote view it. So I take a moment and remote view their house, and I see a black board in the kitchen, fully painted black, because the kitchen is like black and white and grays. And so there's this big wall, and I can see writing on the wall, and I see different colors of chalk. And she goes, I'm going to show you that in more depth in a minute. Walk into the other rooms of the house and go look. So I go into the living room. I don't see any chalkboard. Then I go into the bedrooms. Every single bedroom has a chalkboard, but they are like a whiteboard in one room. There's a green chalk, and then there's chalk paint of different colors that match the rooms or are sort of like the accent wall, and they're a different color than the other three walls. This is really cool. And I see ledges, beautiful ledges with different types of wood, like just absolutely really, how would you say that, Kelly? Decorative?
I don't know if these people are listeners of the show. If you are, and I haven't offended you thoroughly, please send in pictures of your home.
Yeah.
I want to see this.
So there are chalkboard ledges, like this beautiful one, like right here from IKEA, that actually holds picture frames. So I get to see this, and I get to see where there's actually beautiful picture frames with chalk and the chalkboard behind it, where they might have a nice saying, and then, or actually, I want to go into this in a minute, but there's different diagrams on these pictures and on the chalkboards, and they're really important. So what she says to me is, my parents love education. They love process. Look at those chalkboards, Karen. And she says, please tell them that I know all about these boards, because these boards are an evolution through life. And I'm like, oh, I got to write that down. An evolution through life. And I said, what do you mean? Explain. She goes, certainly. She goes, so if you look at one of my siblings' chalkboards, when my parents first started, they were smaller chalkboards. They weren't a full wall. They just bought a board. And they would have put something up on the chalkboard, like smiley faces, like, what do you feel today? Indicate what you feel if you can't express your feelings. Happy face, sad face. And then eventually, as my siblings were learning words, sad, S-A-D, mad, M-A-D. And then eventually, like as they got older, there would be more concepts around, well, who made you angry? Like, what happened to make you angry? And then there were questions that would come along. So there would be a question on the board, like, what kind of questions can we ask you to kind of bring you through what you're feeling or what you're experiencing? And then there's another board or another part of it around perspectives. So maybe that's your perspective. What would somebody else's perspective be? So yours and theirs. So then you can see like a cross on the chalkboard, yours, theirs. At the top, perspective. And these would be your assignments. So you might come home from school and you might, or from wherever you've been, and say somebody bullied you at school, or I don't know, something happened. You'd put down something on the board that was bugging you.
So they're workshopping their feelings.
Constantly.
Love it.
Constantly. And as the mom and dad learn how to do it better and better, they're doing it with their children. So you get to see how mom and dad get better at what did you call it?
Workshopping.
Workshopping problems, feelings, situations, experiences, challenges, goals, growth, whatever you want to put on the board. It gets more detailed so that everybody's in a state of growth constantly. That's the theme. And that mom and dad's beliefs are, just put a pin in it if you can't solve it today. So leave it on the board and go to something else. Because maybe in a week or a month, you might have a different perspective, or you might invite somebody to come into your room and add a perspective or a question on your board. Or somebody might pop into your room and put one on your board, and you might walk in when you go to bed or change into your gym clothes and look at the board and go, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. And it would give you an opportunity to think differently and come back, write your notes down. Somebody else might come in and go, oh, I see where she got to that. I hadn't even thought of that myself. I didn't ask the right question. Maybe I should ask a different question. I was trying to lead them to something and I didn't do a good job. So she says, this is really the core fundamental principles of where my parents see their relationship as a couple. The way they want to connect to each other, where we are always looking to reach out to each other to solve problems together, or to support the other person in solving their own problems. But that's the goal. And then what they're doing is that they're teaching all of my siblings the same thing. And what I'm trying to say is that I'm one of the siblings and I appreciate the boards and the effort.
I love it.
And I want them to know that I'm in the house and I see all the boards. And Karen, you got to remember, I died in this little car seat. Mm-hmm. But I know what's happening with my family. I know what's going on day to day, year to year, through everybody's lives. That I am not missing out on anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm picking this to share. Out of all the things I could have shared, I could have said my dad wears blue jeans, and he goes to work and he wears jeans. I could have said my dad has brown hair, or that I was born with a birthmark on my, left inner thigh. I could have given them some kind of validation to say, hey, I'm trying to prove it's me, but I'm a baby. So there's very little to give you because I didn't have much of a life to be able to share experiences with you, or to change and to grow hair and to do different things so that you could identify that, other than saying maybe that I had a baby lamb, stuffed animal on my bed. And she says, I'm not interested in a baby lamb, stuffed animal in my crib or something like that. I'm interested in who my parents are and how they're raising my brothers and sisters. And she said, so that's why I chose this. And I wanted to bring all of this up today so that they know that I live with them constantly. And that they love growth and change. So do I.
That's lovely.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So I shared that with them. And honestly, Kelly, I'm so glad that she did. And I'm so glad her parents are about growth and about wanting deeper connections and weren't just looking for the stuffed lamb.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really cool too. I wanted to bring this up, but I didn't want to interrupt too much. The idea of, when you did a check-in and said, if I cross a boundary, please let me know, right? Like there's crossing boundaries and there's challenging beliefs. And those are not the same thing, right? To put a challenge out to what someone believes doesn't mean I want to cross your boundary. It means I want to take this concept, I want to parse it out, I want to see what makes sense and what doesn't. I want to really put it through a filter, a rigorous filter of, does this make sense? Does this feel like, sound like, look like truth? That's not the intent to cross a boundary. So when these people show up and say, okay, or have the look on their face of, okay, that felt rude, but I'm going to be open to what is being said. That's the ability to remain open and say, I am willing to let my beliefs get challenged. That doesn't mean that a boundary has been crossed. And I just think that's so important, especially for this younger generation and an older generation. I feel really sandwiched right now. I'm not sure if there's a lot of listeners who are going to feel the same, but it's like everyone in our society is offended right now. There's these two generations of boomers are fucking touchy as hell. Gen Z has not grown up with the idea of being challenged. There's been this protection layer over them, and the one coming up too, where it's you can't say anything without someone thinking you have stepped over the line. And it's okay, well, how then do we challenge what we think we know? if we can't remain open to the idea that we might be wrong or that we might not have all the information. Because it's not necessarily just being wrong. And I love that this podcast helped illustrate that.
Good. I'm glad. And I'm glad for their responses to it, that they stayed present for it. And at the end of the session, the husband says to me, we're still Catholics. And I said, perfect. I said, it was never my intention for you not to be. And he goes, we're still going to be Catholics. We still love our community. And he starts defending it. And I said, you don't need to defend anything. This was not an attack on anything. And he went, no, I'm just maybe trying to get into my head. He says that I'm trying to still see that there's good in this community that I want to be a part of.
Okay, that's the same as saying I'm still a Sarlo. Do you know how fucked that family is? All of us, you could substitute any name, Smith, Johnson, McGinty, everything, every last name. We all have wild, ridiculous family histories of craziness, okay? And we still identify as a Sarlo.
Right.
Because I can appreciate so much of what I got, what I learned, what I absorbed, what I carry with me through life.
Yes.
I don't have to defend that to someone and say, but I still choose to keep my last name and be a Sarlo.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I assume that you're doing your work to figure out what you want to keep and what you want to trash.
Exactly.
And you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, I had a lot of fun today. I'm sorry if I made this more difficult.
No, I think you added humor. I think you brought critical thinking. Well, not I think. I know you brought critical thinking to it. And I'm going to leave it at that because I sat with this whole past week knowing, because I prepared this over a week ago before you got sick, right? And I've had quite a while to think about, do I air this? Is this going to be seen as a horrible show? Are people going to think I was purposely bashing? No, it's not my intention to do that. And that came out in the way that the session went and in the way that you and I presented the story today. What we're trying to do simply is to say, we present what the spirit guides give us to the client, no matter what religion a client is or what belief system they have or don't have. And it's up to them to take the message and figure out what they believe or don't believe, if it's healthy or not healthy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for today. Happy Saturday. Thanks for listening to Coffee with the Sarlos. If you enjoyed the show today, help spread the love with a like, share, or review of the podcast. See you next Saturday with a brand new episode.